So hi on the Guys Podcast. I'm Shane,
I'm Glory.
and we're here with
Collin from Grayscale.
and we're some questions to say about the upcoming album, The Heart. So congrats on that, by the way. How do you feel about the response to the announcement so far?
I feel great. I'm really excited. Everybody in the crew is very excited. It's the longest time we've taken between records that we've put out. So we're excited. We're due for sure. So yeah,
Oh yeah,
looking forward to it.
it's been a long
For
time
sure.
coming. Unfortunately, we didn't get to hear the whole record, but we've heard the singles so far, including the one coming out in like 10 days at the time of recording.
Yeah.
Very excited about this. The
Thank you.
record's
Oh, yeah.
the record's been sounding great so far.
Thank you. Yeah, we're stoked. That's one of my favorites as well. And that's actually the first track on the record.
Hell yeah!
Oh, fuck yeah.
What an opener!
hmm
Love it.
Wonderful. So, is there any meaning behind the album title or cover art?
I think so much of like the sentiment of the record is kind of the way we recorded it, how we wrote it, where we like demoed a lot of it out was so much about kind of getting back to like who we are as people. Like everybody in the band and we've known each other since we were like 13, 14 years old. So we've been like best friends our entire lives. And I think um kind of towards the end of COVID, like when everybody was locked down, we just spent a lot of time. We were kind of had already done our previous record, but we just had a lot of time together to sit and like just reflect on things and like create together. And I think we just found this like love again for making music like in that kind of setting of just sort of plugged into amps in like a basement, like not in like a studio, not doing anything fancy. And like that was it was a really great way to kind of like go back and do things the way that we love doing them. And like it kind of like that process then kind of just like evolved into, okay, visually that we want this to look like sort of like the area that we grew up in. And the name of the record is actually my grandmom's maiden name. And it kind of like, at first we were going to name it The Heart, like spelled normally. And then we were like, it goes so much deeper than that as far as like us as like friends and people who grew up like similarly and been through a lot of, because everything you go through, if you know somebody since you're 14 years old, it's like all of like the serious life shit that you go through, like you experience together. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
life's not that difficult when you're 13. You might think it is, but it's like really not, and you don't know anything. But it's like, so I think it's like all of those experiences growing up as friends, as people, and as artists, like all together. That's sort of like the theme of the record, and we went deeper than we've ever gone in so many ways. And we're really excited about it.
Oh yeah, I was getting that homey kind of feel from the content as well that's been put out so far. Like it's all coming together. I would assume that was on purpose, like the visuals as well, to kind of give that like basement grit in a way.
Yeah, I mean yeah, I mean like I think there's just like a different level of like authenticity, I feel like, to it.
Mhm.
And it's not like, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like by no means is the production it was the most resources and time we've ever put into a record. So like I think it's more so like just the way we went about it was less of like, let's use all of this like technology and the computer or whatever to write the record. It was more like, let's step out of that and like use the computer as little as we possibly can and write it as a band. I feel like more was like the approach.
Gotcha. So can you tell us a little bit about your writing process for the record?
Yeah, we just I mean, not every song's written the same way, but for the most part it's like one of us will come with an idea and we play it as a band live in the basement together. Like in the room that we kind of grew up like demoing stuff out in, like our little rehearsal room at home in Philly. And we just did that a ton. Like we just spent so much time like just playing together live in a room. And from that is like what kind of like spawn the whole thing, what kind of like extract. I think the goal of it was like to extract, like if you put us in like a colander, like those things where you make us whatever.
Yeah.
Like if you could extract out of the bottom of that, like what is the most authentic form of our band in every way, like visually, from a lyrical storytelling perspective, like going deeper, telling like all these kind of deeper stories, personal stories about the things we've been through, and like the sound of things being really catered and specific to sounding the way that we want them to for our band versus just using a ton of stuff like at our disposal, like in the computer. I think I'm sort of saying the same thing in a way, but like that's kind of like that was the goal of it, and so much of like achieving that was just playing together in a room.
I'm curious, like, what kind of caused the decision to get in a room, get in the basement, work together as much as possible, use the computer as a tool, but less? Like, was there a catalyst to that, or did it kind of happen organically?
I think it's a combination of both. I think it was mostly organically, but I think like I don't know. I think we were feeling very like uninspired by a lot of the music we were listening to. I think a lot of the music we were writing, it was like this all sounds the same. Everything sounds the same. I think it just was like it's just always been very important to us to continue to be the most authentic version of ourselves at a given moment. And I think that was like we're much better as musicians and as artists than we were earlier in our career. And I think it's definitely harder when you kind of remove all of that stuff and you kind of are forced to just write together in a room, just with instruments. And I think like it was challenging, but I think that's like the inspiration to answer your question would just be like wanting to get to that like core of like who we are and what we are as musicians in a room together. That would be like the inspiration of it. Yeah, for sure.
That makes sense.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So what song off the album took longest to write, and which one is your personal favorite?
My favorite is a song called Through the Landslide. I think it's the second song, or no, it's the third. There's an intro track, then the song that we're releasing next week, and then like the second full track, third on the record. It's called Through the Landslide, and it's probably my favorite one. I think it's like it just kind of captures like everything kind of in one place. It just kind of captures like the spirit of what we were going for, like artistically. What song took the longest to write? I honestly can't remember one that took like an excruciating amount of time. I think I will say though there's the song Mum 2, which is like the last song or second to last song on the record, which is a single we've already put out. That was the shortest we've ever written a song in like amount of time, which is crazy because it's like a longer song. It's like very deep. It's like a song about my mom and I, and it was just one of those days where we were just like came into our studio and started writing, and like in like the guys started like jamming in the room, and then like 25 minutes they just had this structure kind of laid out, and they just kept ripping through, and I was just kind of like going through my like lyric book and picking things out and sort of writing along and humming along to it. And within like 45 minutes to an hour, I kind of had like a scratch idea, and then like we kind of set up a mic and I sort of sang it in and sang it along, and we had that song like from start to finish kind of demoed out in like 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours, which is like insane because I feel like every other Grayscale song we've ever written is like weeks, sometimes months of just like you just banging your head against the wall. Like not all of them, but it's just like that's a way more common like route that it goes than writing like an entire thing that you love in 2 hours. But I think that was just kind of like, I don't know, just one of the days, like not to be like cheesy, but just like it was just like there was just like magic in the room that day. You know what I mean? Like it just like there was just this like everybody was really connected, you know, like musically, emotionally, whatever, and it was amazing. But that was the shortest I think we've ever written a song, probably in my career, to be honest.
That's
and it was
impressive.
A song that I really,
Yeah.
it's a song I really love, man. It's probably as far as like most meaningful to me. That's definitely the most meaningful song on this record to me. And yeah, I don't think I'll have to if I think of what took long, I'll circle back. But I can't. I don't think there's any like I've had in previous records. There's some that have like there's like an excruciating story about, but I don't think this one had that that I can think of. But if anything comes up, I'll circle back.
Okay.
Now, a song like Mum 2, obviously it's already out, but I'm curious, like, since that song is so deeply personal, you know, I'm not saying other ones are, but since you highlighted that one, is there any sort of anxiety in putting out a song like that is so deeply personal to you and you're so connected to?
Yeah, I mean, it's like yes, but I think, and man, I hate being the cheesy artist guy so much. So like, it's not, but I think there is this feeling of like, I have such a love for art. I have such a love for like, I think the best art and the musicians I really look up to and everything, like they're extremely vulnerable. They're
Mhm.
very open. It's almost like the art comes first. It's like I have a story to tell, and there's people that are going to take something from this, whether they relate to it directly or indirectly or whatever. There's a lesson in it. You know, I've learned a lesson in it. This is something I've like been through that's been difficult, and I want to like share for the sake of art and share for the sake of like the emotions and like all the tumultuous feelings and things that came through it. So like, so my answer would be yes, there is anxiety, but it's like it is a weird, you know, being that open about something that's so personal. It definitely is weird, but I think I've just found this like, especially with this record, this like extreme comfort in just like that's like we as a band, as myself as a lyricist, like I owe it to the art. Like I owe it for the sake of like what like art should be, and you know like what music should be, and what I love about music and all the bands I loved listening to growing up, and lyricists I loved growing up. It's like what, you know, what would they do? Like they certainly wouldn't hide behind anything. So it's like I'm, you know, like that's the right thing to do for the sake of the song. So yes, there is anxiety, but it's definitely like worth it. It's definitely worth it, and I wouldn't change it for sure.
Yeah, and you're totally right. Like you, as a listener, you can see through a facade when the art isn't 100% genuine. Like it just makes sense as an artist to be your 100% genuine self, because you're more likely to connect with someone than if you're trying to pander to them.
Yeah, dude, and like so much of what you just said, I feel like now we're getting into it, feeling a little better. The cold brew's flowing. Don't feel like a fucking idiot trying to figure out my microphone.
Dude, we're
but
cruising. Wi-Fi
I
issue
feel like,
sorted.
yeah, dude, Wi-Fi is good. Cold brew's flowing. Microphone is plugged in. But I feel like the exactly what you said, where like that, like there was such a premeditated thing going into this of like we will not settle for anything that feels like we're just writing songs for the sake of writing songs. And we've never done that before, but I think in particularly this record, it was like I want to dig in so much. I think so much of it too is like I listened to so much like Bruce Springsteen in COVID. And it's funny because my mom loved Bruce Springsteen growing up, but I didn't get it until I didn't get it for a while. There's like some bands, like my parents love Zeppelin. And I loved Zeppelin when I was like, it was like the first shit that I played when I was like 9, when I played drums and stuff. Like I loved it right away. I connected with it right away. A lot of 90s rock I connected with right away, but like some of the things you don't realize until you're a little bit older, they don't connect with you. And Bruce Springsteen was one of those things that just like, I was just like a late bloomer. I don't know. And when it finally started to hit me in like my mid 20s, which is like nuts to even say that, but it's like it hit me like, you know, in my 20s. And then when I started kind of analyzing it, listening to it as a musician, as a lyricist, it was like this is so amazing. There's so much emotion in this, and like I love this, and there's so much like he's a Jersey guy, and there's just like so much. There's just so much of it that like I love, and is so real, and it's inspired so much of the bands like that I love. Like there's so much Springsteen in Bleachers or The Killers or Sam Fender. There's so many artists that like take so much inspiration from him, and it's like I think I just like had really connected with it sort of before and as we started writing this record. And then so much of it, the inspiration was like, I want to go, you know, deeper than we ever have with everything with this record. And from a lyrical perspective and kind of the stuff we talked about earlier in this interview, before the cold brew was flowing, before the microphone was working, I was trying to elaborate on how like with that comes, you know, being very selective of the sounds, being very deliberate with the sounds, not settling for something that's a preset in a computer, like going in a synth and like going analog and like finding everything the way exactly we want it to sound. And having less things, like having a limited amount of things, like this is what the record sounds like. It's these synths, it's these guitars, it's these like pedals, whatever. And like really like letting that be like the North Star and like just like rolling with it. And I think that sort of like perspective for the sound and like visually being like this is where we're from, everything you know, like kind of like in and around Philadelphia, like where we grew up, it's like these like you have these like sort of like you have like the country and these like farms and this like green grass, and it's very like dull looking like throughout most of the year, and it's very like very just like I don't know, like it's kind of depressing a lot of the year, to be honest. And it just was like it was like this is visually like you go and we could bring all of this into a studio and you know get nice promos and pictures, whatever. Or it's like if this is what this record is so much about who we are and how we grew up, it's like what better way than like to walk outside in this shit rain weather in coats and just take the pictures here. So I think it was a really fun way to just take that authenticity buzzword and just like in every way, shape, or form, you know, just apply it. And that's sort of the heart, the core, like that's sort of the meaning behind all of it. And we chose like I said, my grandmom's maiden name was part of that. And just like, we're all like from similar families. And it felt like it was something relatable. Like these feelings, these stories are all something like our families have been a part of and like have related to in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
So how'd the track list for your album come about? Did you guys write the opener for the opener, close the big closer, shuffle around and see what fits? What was that process like?
That's so funny. We've never, I think like every Grayscale album we've done, it's like we'll write a bunch of songs, and like somewhat fairly early on, like once we start talking about track listing, there's always one where people are like, oh, obviously it's that one.
Mm-hmm.
Like obviously, like we've never gone out and been like, let's write the album opener, but it's like we'll write a bunch of songs, and as soon as we start that conversation, we've been lucky enough where almost every record we've done, this will be our fourth full length record. There's always been one that's just been clear. So that song, I don't think we said the title. I don't know if we were avoiding saying the name deliberately, but
no.
Okay. So Kept Me Alive, that song, it was very clear early on. I'm like, this is the one that has to be the first track for so many reasons. It just, I think a lot of it, you think about like playing it live too. Like you think about coming out with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was just like, it sets the right mood, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know you guys are doing the full album play in December, and I don't want to spoil whatever you guys may or may not be doing, but you mentioned that like walking out to that song for whatever potential tour there is in 2025 headline is the plan to do something like you did with Umbra, where you played that record in full on that tour.
Yeah, I feel like we'll always probably be that kind of band. I think we'll always like, because there's so many times, like whether there's support tours or it's like, you know, other like we had a co-headliner with Small Pools like recently, and like they had a record coming out. We didn't have a new record coming out at the time, and it's like you kind of get to pick and choose. But I think anytime there's like a new record coming in, like we generally, for the most part, I think we'll always lean towards playing it in some, whether it's like straight through exactly as the track listing is, or it's kind of mixed in, like playing the majority, if not all of the songs of the new record. So I'd imagine that like whatever 2025 headline touring comes about will be something similar to like what we played our release show in some capacity.
Oh yeah, respect that.
Sounds good. So you kind of went into it a little bit earlier, but if you want, you could go a bit more in depth. Would you be able to tell us where your headspace is at while you're creating this record?
I mean, to be honest, I was probably in like probably the most difficult place I've ever been, to be totally honest. I think like, and I'm not really like open about that shit, to be honest. And like, I think I'm more, for me, it's more like I internalize things a lot. And then who I'm going to talk about that to are like the people close to me, and we're going to put it into music as well. I'm not like if it works for other people, cool. Like I'm just not the kind of person. I don't feel like I need to talk about it on the internet. I feel like it's like I work through my shit in private, and then the things that I need to articulate and express, like make it into songs. You know what I mean? So I think some of the personal things, like I had, just like really bad life things. Like both my parents were very ill, through very, very ill, things like that. And just like the kind of perspective you kind of get when, you know, people you love are dying. Like that's like not it totally just kind of changes the way you look at things, and it puts you in a weird space and you feel isolated, and everybody's like, people reach out and are there for you, and like it's like one of those things you learn of like, and it's normal, but it's like when you're going through something horrible, it's like the first 2 or 3 weeks people will like reach out and check in on you, and then after that there's this period of like everybody's kind of moved on and they're back in their lives, and you're still like, that's really when it hits you more than the first week or two of like what you're going through. So I just had a lot of like health related, like just bad things, and like that were like going on in my personal life with people, and like health related things, and like it just like put me in like a tough place. I think a lot of people were in a tough place, especially like with COVID. Like I think a lot of people in my life like that had addiction problems were in really, really bad places. I think a lot of people around me were in a tough place, and I think it was just this dark period of time for a lot of people, myself included. And I think a lot of that, and coming out of that and overcoming a lot of that, like on a personal, like emotional, spiritual level, and then like getting through and working through some of the things, like that you face as an adult, like all of that kind of came to like together, culminated for this record. And that's kind of like, so yeah, I would say like the headspace, to answer your question, was like, it was probably the toughest headspace I had ever been in, writing a record for a lot of reasons.
Yeah,
completely understandable.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing it, because I know you mentioned you like to deal with stuff internally and not put it out there on the internet, but by saying what you did, you are putting it on the internet. So I respect you being open and honest, because you totally could sit here and be like, nah man, like shit was great, like what are you talking about, it was awesome. But being real, going back to a conversation we had earlier on in this, being real and open and honest, I respect that big time.
For sure. Yeah, no, I definitely, I just think it's important. I think as you get better at sort of like managing your emotions, it's like you just kind of get better at, I don't know, just like facing things and being open about it. I think part of it is like there's so much of that on the record, so it's like it's fairly obvious. So I feel like it's like I definitely want to be more open about it. I think it's good to be open about it. It's not something I'm necessarily good at, but I think also having 12 songs in some capacity touching on it is like, it'd be hard for me right now to be like, oh, I was fine. Like it's pretty obvious. But
hard to sugarcoat it this time as the lyricist to the band.
Right. It's I mean, literally kept me alive is the title of the next song coming out. So it's like, it'd be hard to be like, oh, I was fine. I was just fucking around. I just wrote it for fun.
Exactly. I was being silly,
Means nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, good question for sure.
Thank you. So how do you recommend your fans to listen to this album for the first time? Should do in the car with friends, dark with headphones on, is workout album, party album? What do you personally recommend?
It's not a work album. It's not a party album. I think I'm big on like, my brother and I talk about this. We're both big like for the records that you really love and want to actively listen to. Like the car ride has always been my just like rip it straight through on a car ride, and like back roads car ride, like no, you're not going anywhere, you're just driving. That's always like kind of my go-to. But I would think listening to it straight through in like a place where you can actively listen would be, whether that's like headphones in bed late or you're driving with or without a friend. But I think like in any place, if I could make one request, it would be to listen to it straight through and actively listen to it, not while you're scrolling on your phone. That would be my one request.
Put the phone down.
Yeah,
exactly.
Put the phone down. Put the phone down for like 40 minutes, or at least silence it. Put it on airplane mode.
Yeah, and then talk about how great the record is on Twitter after that.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
So this one should be super, super quick. Off the top of your head, I want you to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words. No more, no less.
Authentic, dark.
Yeah.
I think intense.
Yeah,
I think those would be the 3.
Yeah,
those are good. Hell yeah.
So it's like very real and deep, but it's also not like, I don't want it to come across like it's like this like dreary sad thing the whole time, because it's not. It's like it's not slow either. Like there's a lot of like tempo in it. Like it moves, and it's, some songs are like fast, and it's loud for sure, but it's just like intense.
That's good.
Perfect.
So in that same train of thought, is there a certain feeling or emotion you want listeners to have while going through the album?
I'm hoping that the stories from it, like people connect to sort of just like the things they've been through in life. Like I just think it's a record about life and like the hard things that you go through and like the way you grew up and who you are. Like it's a very introspective record. So I guess I would just ask people, I mean, not ask, just like I just would say, think about yourself and the people and how you were raised, how you grew up, who you grew up with, and like what you've been through. Like that's sort of the sentiment of it. And I would hope that listening to it kind of inspires like, you know, like a healthy like reflection of things, you know what I mean? And like a sense of self in a way. Yeah.
Oh yeah, love
Sure.
that.
Fucking love it. And are you able to touch on any particularly challenging or standout moments during the creation of the album, positive or negative?
There's a song, one of my favorites, called "Don't Leave Me in the Dark," and it's like about it's like I think that was one that we like got in. We had like a pretty split camp as far as like we argued quite a bit about the structure of the song.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was a pretty challenging one to get through because we essentially had these like two parts that we really loved for the chorus, and we didn't know how to make them work together. And it was kind of like, well, it has to be one or the other. And it was a demo. It was like a demo coming in that I really loved the way it was, and we wrote this new part to it. But I think, and it was challenging. Like it took, not that it took an insanely long amount of time, but it was like it took a few days of sort of like two sides not really bending, like kind of like arguing about it. And eventually the side that I was on, fortunately, succeeded.
There you go.
And we got through it. And I'm like really, while that was like a song that took a lot of debating, it was one that I think everybody, like in a respectful way, of course, like I think everybody, we came out of it and it's like exactly how it should be.
Mm-hmm.
That's one that I really, really loved. It's not a like deep one. It's like the title of it's like is something that like my mom said to me when she was in like a really horrible place. And it just has always been a song that like I've cared a lot about. And I think it was a difficult one to work through, but I feel really good about where it ended. Yeah, I think, and then like just there's other things where like in the second verse of like Mum, like there was a moment where I just started breaking up, and then like I started crying in the second verse of Mum, and our producer Eric and co-producer Eli at the time, he was like, Eli and Eric kept pushing, they kept pushing me to like sing through it. And I'm like, I literally can't, like, I need 5. And they kind of told me to like, they were like, just push through it, like deal with it. Like, I don't care. Just like push through it, whatever. So I pushed through it, and it ended up being like the final take that was kept was just like me basically like breaking down in the second verse, which I thought was like, at the time I was like, I'm not sure if like that should stay. Like it seems like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But then back to kind of the conversation we've had, it's like it felt like appropriate for the sentiment of the song. Like there's like this hopelessness in like that second verse of like talking about my mom's like abuse and like how I felt very helpless in it, like not being able to help. And I think like that is kind of the only emotion there is like it's helpless. And that's exactly what I sounded like singing it. And it's like, I think that was a special thing. It takes a lot of trust. I mean, I've known these like the boys for forever, more of my life than not, but like, you know, you're working with producers and stuff, and like for people to really be in the boat with you, like emotionally understanding everything and like pushing you to like be better at it, and something that they're just watching on the outside, like is a really cool thing. It's a trusting moment. It's a special thing that like I'm thankful for, to have people that push me and push us in like in a way that's like helping the authenticity, tell the story, all of that. And then I think the last thing would be Not Afraid to Die, which was the first song we wrote for the record,
Mm-hmm.
and is the last song on the album. Which single it was the first kind of single we put out as like a bridge single before we had the rest of the record completely recorded. But Not Afraid to Die, we literally recorded the whole thing live, like as a band, all at one time in the room, and just like kept that. Yeah, so like the whole like, and that like, which is nuts because it's like that's how records always were cut. But like for you know, for people that don't know that, it's like a lot of records now, like any other previous Grayscale record, or at most 99% of what you're hearing, each individual instrument part is punched. You know, you do it 10, 15, 20 times. But like something really cool about Not Afraid to Die, and the whole sentiment of like, we want this record to reflect who we are, is like let's go record the drums, the bass, the guitars, everything all at the same time live in one room, and just like keep that as the entire take. And then like I punch vocals over top because you have like zero control of like treating vocals if you do it all live as well. Then it just becomes like a live performance. So it's as close to like a live performance as it possibly could be. And it's like something that kind of set the stage to like what the rest of the record will be. Not that every single other song we took that much of like the initial live performance of it, but it definitely set like the precedent of like this is the vibe of the record, and like whatever songs are appropriate to do this, we're going to take as much of like the live everybody in a room type feeling, so it feels like a band in a room vibe. So yeah, those would be like the standout ups and downs, like significant moments that I can think of.
Fuck yeah.
Curious what other songs had that live element, because you mentioned other songs on the record have that as well.
All of them in some capacity do. It's just like, which I think Not Afraid to Die was probably the most. I think like that. I mean, to be honest, Kept Me Alive, similar. Through the Landslide, similar. I think some of like the bigger rock ones. I think it's a little more delicate with the ballad stuff when you're getting like when you're recording a piano or an acoustic guitar in a room, for instance. It's hard to isolate. Like any little sound in the background is hard. It's like you hear it more than you'd hear like with people like ripping in a room with amps. So I would say pretty much all of the record, particularly like any of the rocks, like the heavier, harder rock songs, louder, more energetic songs, like those were all in some capacity. We kept the live takes from. Every single song we started, we'd go in and we'd do 20 takes as a band, and we'd take the best one, and then from there, if and when things needed, and mostly like the ballads were like, oh, you can hear somebody fucking walking during the piano, you can hear whatever, like that's where we kind of start isolating and punching in certain things like that. But yeah, I mean, all of them, the bones of every single song on the record were us playing live, taking a take of all the guitars, the bass, the drums, and then like kind of tacking on from there.
Gotcha.
I fuck with that so much. That's so cool. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was like, and I think we'll probably like we've always like obviously pre-pro'd out and played as a band, but I think the sentiment of like let's let the bones of this be a complete live take will probably always be the way that we do things. I think that's something that we found as a band this time, that we're like, you can do it and it can sound like punk rock and that's cool, but I think to do it in the way that we wanted it to do, it has to be very rehearsed, and it has to be like fucking tight. It has to be like we've been touring actively since 2017. Like we wouldn't be good enough as musicians yet to have done this on previous records, I guess is my point. It's like there's a cool punk rock-ness to that, but I think to execute it in the way that like we did, it's something that we weren't necessarily ready for it before this record. So to be able to do it now the way that we want, and it like sound like a studio recording, just takes a lot of practice and rehearsal and whatever. I'm not like patting myself on the back by any means. I'm just saying like, that's something we had to work towards, and I'm like really proud of that being a part of our process now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, man, toot your own horn, man. Fuck it. Why not?
Yeah, that's my vibe. Yeah.
That's just how it is, man.
That's how it is.
So for this question, I want you to picture you're on tour, you're at a gas station for a rest stop. What is your snack of choice?
It's a great question.
Thank you.
Well, the South, anywhere in the South has the best candy. I don't know what it is, but there's something about like, if you're going into like a gas station, yeah, dude, they love, like, I don't know, like if you roll into a gas station in like Alabama, it's like absolutely just, or Texas, like just filled every like candies you've never even heard of. So I would say if I'm like in that region, if I'm in the South, I'm like looking for some kind of like sour candy that I've never had before, some kind of like Haribo, or like some kind of, I don't know, like I don't know what brand, but like there's always like a couple extra like Trolley or Haribo sour things that I've never seen before that I'm going with. In any other part of the country, I love dill pickle sunflower seeds. I love pickle flavored sunflower seeds, but it's tough for me as a singer. Like it's the worst thing because it's just actually salt. So, and staying hydrated is so important as a singer on tour. So it's like when I have an off day or I can get away with it, my go-to is usually like pickle flavored sunflower seeds. I fucking love those.
Yeah.
I like beef jerky. I like Gatorade.
Wait, what
So
color
I'm
Gatorade
some.
though?
I like the zero sugar
Yeah.
glacier cherry, the white one.
Oh, yeah, the white one.
Yeah, the white zero sugar, and then I also like the light blue, like the glacier freeze zero sugar.
Yeah.
I used to not like the zero sugar, but like once I started doing it, I was like, this is like probably much better for me, and it still hits. So
Yeah.
I would say the white Gatorade, the light blue, and then the orange are probably in that order my favorites.
Huh. I haven't had the orange one. I've only stuck with like the red, the blue, and the white.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, the red's good too. I think I had the fruit punch one when like I was sick, like I had the flu or something, and I was like when I was a kid and I like had a bunch of fruit punch, and I think after that I'm like I kind of like associate it with
being sick,
like food poisoning or being sick, so I kind of avoided it. But yeah, it's classic. It's classic.
Exactly.
Classic Gatorade for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, those would be my picks.
All right.
Solid picks. And on the topic of food, if the band was a dish, what dish would the band be and why?
Dude, I think we'd just be just like a number one Big Mac meal with a large fry and a large Coke from McDonald's.
This would be a McDonald's meal?
Just like salt of the earth. Just like knows what it is. American. Dude, I don't know. That's such a hard question to answer. I don't know. That's hard. It's not like we're not elegant. We're not like sushi. We're not like expensive steak. Like I feel like we're just like a fucking good. I don't know.
Good hearty meal.
Maybe, yeah, or maybe like a pork roll, egg and cheese sandwich from like Wawa or something. Like a breakfast sandwich from Wawa. Maybe that's more fitting.
Okay.
Ties in the Philly vibe.
I obviously you hate that answer, and I'm trying to think of a better one to give you.
If you want to stick with McDonald's, that is completely fine. It just caught me.
I'm gonna go with some kind of salty fast food meal.
You could say McDonald's. It's okay.
I'm with McDonald's. Yeah, I'm sticking with McDonald's. McDonald's or Wawa, some kind of salty sandwich.
Yeah, I support it.
That's our vibe. That's who we are. That's what we love.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sounds good.
And for the last couple questions, we're going to shift completely away from music and go straight to death row.
Boom.
So if you're on death row, what would your last meal be with a drink?
My last meal would be, there's a taco place in San Diego called Tacos El Gordo. I would have 3 of the adobado tacos from there. I would have 1 fresh Krispy Kreme glazed donut. And I think I'd have a white zero sugar Gatorade. I think that'd be it. And I'd be happy. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Good pick.
Love it.
And if you could live in one fictional world for a week, where would you live?
I think Star Wars. I think but not like, I think I'd live in like outlaw Star Wars with the boys. And we just go riding around. Like Han Solo Star Wars, you know what I mean? That vibe.
Yeah. Damn right. Looting and shit.
Looting and shit. Yeah, we'd be looting.
Yeah.
Hanging out at cantinas. Yeah, it'd be sick.
Yeah, damn
Fuck
right.
yeah. And I've not asked the last question. Every single person that we've spoken to have said that it is the most important question. What's your favorite color?
I like dark blue.
Ooh.
That's solid.
I don't know why. Just like midnight blue.
Oh, so like darker than fucking navy, no?
Darker than navy, yeah. Like real, like I don't know. There's just like I don't know. Just like hits. I think there's it's like a pretty color, but it's also like it's like serious and like emotive. I don't know.
Absolutely.
It's a good color. Yeah.
Hell yeah. So as I said, that's all the questions you have today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
No, I just it's like I'm just super thankful for everything so far with like the record. We've been really, really excited like to roll it out and like have everybody like fans buying vinyl and everything is on sale now. It's been like selling really, really fast, and we're like really excited about everybody to hear it. And if you haven't pre-ordered the record, go pre-order it, and it comes out January 31st. And yeah, thank you for all the support. Really, really excited about the whole cycle coming up.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Now it's been Collin from Grayscale, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.